they've got to bring the stuff up here.
We need the sign-up sheet.
The sign-in sheets. Also, when are we swearing in?
Hey, Nick. I'm good. You doing all right? Did your daddy tell you I ran into him the other day at Lowe's, did he?
They can either just come in and do it.
Hadn't seen him in a long time.
Really? Maybe at the next board commission meeting. But they're just here to observe tonight.
I am too, but I'm mostly round in the middle.
They got
I try not to go to Lowe's
that's
because
approved
it's
them, but they just got to swear.
when you go out there, you're getting something to work with, and I don't
Members and then two
go out there much
Are they here?
unless I have to.
They will start their service at next meeting, right?
Okay, cool.
That is what we're shooting for.
Are they,
I'll probably like under new
I'm just
business or
telling-
something, just introduce them
Okay.
real quick.
Yeah, that is-
are they here
so
tonight?
I'll hand that. Becky's not here.
I'll just keep paying regular price.
No?
Yes.
Good.
Well, should I just save it until you give your introduction to the packet? Yeah, so everybody can hear what the question is. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Bang the gavel, babe.
Good evening, everyone. I call the April 13th, 2026 meeting of the Rockingham County Planning Board in session. We will begin with an invocation from Corey Scott.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, grateful to gather in this planning board, grateful for the responsibility we have to administer the rules and regulations of the state of North Carolina and also represent the citizenry of the Rockingham County. We pray that for thy blessing on these proceedings, that we might be careful, courteous, thoughtful, and able to come to the appropriate decisions that are necessary. We give thanks for this wonderful county. Pray for thy blessing upon it and the people who live here and the people who lead us in the county government. And we pray for these blessings in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
The next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, likewise. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes for the March 19th, 2026 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
To approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, likewise. Now we will review the procedures for tonight's proceedings. The following information is for public use. All Rockingham County Planning Board meetings are held in accordance with state law and adopted bylaws. Meeting dates, agendas, and meeting minutes are posted on the county's website, along with the bylaws and county's land use plan. Planning Board meetings are open to the public, live streamed, and videos of this meeting and previous meetings are also posted on the county's website. Zoning map changes are legislative matters. These map changes are reviewed for reasonableness and consistency with the North Carolina Statute 160D, the Rockingham County 2021 Land Use Plan, and the Unified Development Ordinance, along with other adopted plans. This board considers recommendations for staff planning and public comment. When applicable, this board reviews potential land use requests from the applicant. The planning board decisions are recommendations to the Rockingham County Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners will hold a public meeting before making final decisions whether to approve or deny a zoning map change. Zoning cases will be considered using the following procedure. Staff will present the case to the board. After the staff presentation, the applicant may come forward to offer information about the request. A period of public comment will then be opened. Those who wish to speak must register on the sign-in sheet at the door. Comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Before addressing the board, all speakers shall state their name and address for the record. Comments or questions must be relevant to the case and be solely directed towards the planning board. No speaker may directly address the applicant, staff, or members of the audience. The board, in turn, may seek an answer from the applicant, staff, or members of the audience. Respect for this board, speakers, and general decorum will be maintained during this meeting. Okay, and those are the procedures. Can we, let's hear zoning map amendment 202604. And before we start, go ahead and present, and then I'll ask if there's any conflicts.
This is case 2026-04. This is a zoning map amendment for the Stone rezoning. This is a request to rezone the property from residential agricultural to residential protected. The tax pin number for the record is 7997-0483-0555. The location of the parcel is 1396 Harrison Cross Road Loop in Reidsville. It's in the Wentworth Township, and this is a conventional rezoning. Here is a vicinity map where the parcel is located. So it's located right off Highway 14 at the intersection of Barrymore Road and Harrison Cross Road Loop. Here is a zoning map of the parcel. So as you can see, it's primarily surrounded by RA, but there is RP to its south and its south and west. Here's an aerial map of the parcel. There's currently 2 houses on this lot, and there's also buildings. So this parcel is located in the G1, or the low-density growth transect, according to the Rockingham County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. And this is characterized as the county's low-growth area that encourages residential development in areas that have existing crossroads. So our land use plan does suggest that areas within this land class should generally be zoned residential agricultural, although a planned unit development or a PUD or residential mix may be appropriate to provide a mix of housing types or other appropriate uses. And I'll answer any questions, and staff does recommend approval. And a representative of the applicant is also here, if you have any questions.
Is there any questions from?
I have one question here on that particular parcel. 2020, case 202604 and case 202606. Depending on how you read those, is there any conflict there between those two? The 202606 says that they're clarifying that there's one principal building is permitted per lot in residential districts, whereas here in 202604, we're saying we want to allow a change to residential protected for a property that already has 2 principal buildings on it.
So, Mr. Roberts, it's my understanding of speaking to the applicant as well, is that they would like to subdivide the lot, and RA requires a 35,000 square foot minimum square footage requirement, and RP requires a 30,000 square foot minimum lot size requirement, and rezoning the parcel to RP would allow them to subdivide the lot, and it would then meet compliance. That's the purpose of the rezoning.
Okay, but in the interim, it is not compliant.
Yes, sir, that would be the case.
Okay.
Approving the rezoning, it would then be able to be subdivided and therefore be in compliance.
Fair with that text amendment, and we can discuss that aspect of it a little bit later on, but that's really going to be just more of a clarification kind of amendment. There's definitely some language throughout the ordinance that leads to the 1 house per lot rule, and that's definitely been our policy before. So currently that text amendment is really just going to be more for clarifying that in the ordinance as opposed to making any real substantive changes to the ordinance, if that makes sense.
Yeah. pretty much.
Okay, so in the history, it looks like this property was RP and then went back to RA, and now they want it to go back to RP. Do we have any,
To be honest, Chairwoman Talbot, I believe that's probably a typo on my part. I think it was zoned RA. Adam, is that correct? It was zoned RA in 1988? It's very possible that I typed that and didn't.
Yeah, I think that was just
Yeah,
a
I'm
mistake
pretty,
on the staff.
yeah, I just want to, it's probably me.
That was just supposed to be, read residential
Yeah,
agriculture.
that should be
in the
RA
previous
and not
zoning
RP
history.
for the 1988. So
Okay.
when you see that, it should be RA.
good.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No worries.
So it's never been rezoned previously. They would like to rezone it now.
Okay, so, yeah, when we did all the zoning many years ago, it's just dropped in there. Can we look back at the other surrounding zoning? So, I'm not puzzled, but everything around it is RA, and then there is some close RP, or there's RP that's close by. So this is just so that they can subdivide that and be in compliance.
That's my understanding, but a representative of the applicant is here.
Okay.
But I believe that's my understanding.
Okay,
Adam, is that correct? Okay.
okay. But so it would be an outlier, but not too far out of being an outlier. Okay. Thinking out loud. Are there any more questions for staff? Thank you. Do we have Gene Robertson?
Good job, sir.
Hello, Mr. Robertson. Would you please state your name and address, please?
Gene Robertson, 504 Woodland Drive, Madison, North Carolina.
And what would you like to tell us about this request?
Mr. Stone asked me to be here tonight on his behalf. He had to have some surgery. He thought it was going to be an outpatient thing, that he would be able to be here, but it's not. He's had it in Chapel Hill, and they had to put him to sleep, so he's not going to be able to be here. He asked me to come. The staff has explained very well what his intentions are. We wanted to bring it into compliance and with the order so it could be subdivided. And Mr. Stone's like myself, he's trying to get his affairs in line. He wants to put those houses on the market and sell them.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from the board? No questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other further questions or discussion?
About what? About that text amendment?
No, about this case. Are we ready to?
Oh, okay, so we're moving on to 2606 of 202605.
We still need to,
We still need to.
We're still on 4.
We're still on
We're
4.
still on 4. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, we're still on 4. We've got one more thing to do here on 4, so if
I
there,
was stuck.
so, no worries. Okay, so if there's no more discussion, no more questions, is there a motion?
a motion to recommend approval of this request based upon the consistency and reasonableness determination statements that are included in the agenda packet as may be amended during the rezoning process.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Let me get my. Okay. Now, may we hear case number 2026-04?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Before us tonight is 2026-05, hopefully this text amendment will be pretty simple. It's pretty a straightforward ask to basically allow staff to make some changes to the ordinance, basically without your approval. But these changes are going to be very specifically tied to something like typos, something like, grammatical changes or formatting type changes. And here's actually a really good example that I'll show you in our next text amendment. If you see here, we've got this is just kind of the general description of some of the zoning districts. We have RA, and we have, underneath RA, you'll see 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then we get down to RP, and you'll see I've gone ahead and crossed it out in this instance. But, just a very simple error that can occur with Microsoft Word kind of situation where it put 2 instead of 1 when that should be a 1. So I went ahead and made that change, but, staff looks through the ordinance sometimes and sees some of these minor errors like that, and ultimately the correct process would be to have to bring that as a full text amendment before both boards and everything in order to make those changes, and oftentimes that just kind of ends up slipping through the cracks instead. So this text amendment would essentially just allow us to, as we see some of those just minor non-substantive changes, to go ahead and just make those adjustments to the ordinance as needed.
Is there any feedback loop on that?
How do you mean?
Meaning, so there's, the underlying assumption is that there's no, it does not change the intent of the ordinance.
Correct.
And so is there any thought that we might need some feedback on any of this, or, or do we just make sure, hey, spell my name right, okay?
I mean, certainly these changes would be documented. We would ensure that, just like through our normal text amendment documentation and stuff that we have, that we would certainly document these changes to make sure that we have clear record that they would occur. But otherwise, other than that, that wasn't, I mean, if there's other logical ways to go about feedback that y'all would suggest, I'd certainly be welcome to it. If that's something that the board would want to put forth and recommend. If we want, I did have one extra thing included in this text amendment that I'll go ahead and quickly explain before y'all want to potentially discuss that. The other thing, this is something that we were going to add right after the cover sheet, right before the table of contents. So this is just a one-shot little document, and this is just going to kind of clearly lay out every time the ordinance has been amended. So it just kind of gives us a little clean cheat sheet, and I think this is a really good time for it because the ordinance got completely rewritten in 2021. We've had several text amendments, but not a huge amount. If we were to wait 10 years to do something like this, it'd be a lot of work to go back and make sure we have all of those clearly labeled. So this is just going to allow a little bit more clarity if someone's going through the ordinance and wondering, like, hey, when did this get changed, kind of thing. And it's also just going to kind of help staff as well we need to go back and look at prior ordinance and stuff like that. Sometimes cases, when you look at like non-conforming situations, we have to go back to look at the ordinance of when this thing got approved and the regulations in place at the time. So this will just kind of clearly let us kind of cross-reference those things and have a clear thing in the ordinance. And that's one thing kind of added into this language here for adjustments is we also added in that we can make adjustments to that table, so you don't have to see this table ever again when we do text amendments. So that was kind of the thought process there.
But if we felt a need to, if we have a case that might reference that table because there was changes that were made over time, that would be helpful for us to maybe to take a look at it. Mm-hmm. So we could, on request, we could, take a look at the table.
Yeah, and it'll always be in the ordinance moving forward. So, any text amendment comes through, we'll go ahead and just, as we make our edits to the ordinance through the text amendment, we'll probably just go ahead and be updating the table. But the allowance.
So you're making the ordinance a living document.
Correct.
That's, okay. I get it.
Will the text amendments be entered in this, like the minor stuff we're talking about? Or is that just going to just not be talked about?
I would probably think not, but it certainly could be our practice that we do so. I would
If
generally.
you did that, I would probably say I'd want a separate, just minor stuff, and then the major stuff be like what you have outlined here already.
Yeah, what I was thinking is this kind of be our major stuff, things that really fully go through the process for substantive changes, and that be literally in the ordinance, and then we probably just kind of keep a spreadsheet, just kind of at the staff level. Obviously, it's still public information, so if anybody, board members, public, ever want to look at it, we'd probably just keep like an Excel spreadsheet of any of the changes that we have done, and kind of keep records of those as well, but probably not include that in the ordinance itself.
So these text amendments, no matter how inconsequential they may seem to the person that's doing the reviewing, which would be you and maybe one or two others, maybe Nick and a couple others, no matter how inconsequential it may seem, you are going to make a note of that change, and that change will appear, I don't know, either in red letters, underlined, or whatever, on each text amendment case that we look at.
So so it wouldn't come before y'all to look at as kind of the main gist of what this is. We would still kind of keep that record of what those changes are, and then just go ahead and make those changes.
Okay, would it be burdensome for you to produce at any particular time for these potentially inconsequential changes or substantive changes? To just produce a one sheet with that change and the reference, some kind of reference number or whatever, and just give us each a copy of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that the appropriate place for that is if we have, if you've got one or two a month or none a month, under other business, if you can just update us that a non-substantive change has been made to the UDO, and you can say it was formatting or numbering, things like that, or correcting a misspelled, a typo. I think that would be helpful for us.
Yeah.
I do have a question about an appropriate definition of what non-substantive is, because that is very subjective. So if there's a way for us to, and we may have to table this until we can come back, but I would like language in here that states a non-substantive, and you can use the word non-substantive, but, and there just needs to be a definition, meaning that no change or material meaning is altered by any of these changes. Because that, I think, there just needs to be a definition somewhere.
Suggest that in the next line, do you think?
And
Do you want more specific versus where it says that it does not change the meaning of the ordinance?
And just for my own clarification, do you think that like some of the language in there about like it being editorial changes and specifically listing out that like correct typographical errors, numerical reference errors, spelling errors, does that not do the work of kind of the definition of non-substantive, or?
I want to see the word changes. If you swap out one word, say you swap out the word substantive for informative or something like that, I would want to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Certainly any language to this before it's gone through any process.
Language, I don't mean English to Spanish, but I mean any language changes should be highlighted and keep a record or something.
So actually you spell it out, but then you say, and may make any other non-substantive editorial changes. Mm-hmm. It's the non-substantive editorial language that I'm getting hung on a little bit here, because, while you have specifically spelled out things that do not change the meaning,
Does taking non-substantive help? I mean, if we just specifically list out
I'll tell you, take out.
graphical errors, numerical errors, that's it, editorial changes.
Yeah, if you can say,
Looking for an exhaustive list? of what changes they would make?
Well, I think he's actually covered it here. The types of changes that I have no question about are the typographical errors, numerical reference errors, spelling errors, errors in section page numbering.
Next one, update the text amendment record. I don't know exactly what that would mean.
That's the chart, right?
That's the chart he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like I said, with the chart, I was thinking keeping this particular chart of full text amendments that are substantive, that come through the full process. We're really changing actual language here, and then just keeping general record of the grammatical error changes.
So it may work a little bit better to leave it update the text amendment record, and I'm sorry to wordsmith here, but we can, if you will say instead, no substantive editorial changes will be made to the ordinance without formal adoption. Yeah. I think what that does is it puts it back on us to review from that point. But you've outlined exactly what you need in this. Okay. So I would flip the tone. Okay. Or the syntax.
Right now, help me understand where we sit right now. We've got this code of ordinances that are out there that were adopted in 2021. Yep. And then we've had these 4 changes. I just went online while we're sitting here just trying to look at pull it up and see. I worry that we're going to have an instance where somebody is, and if it doesn't have the date on it, what version number we're working on, somebody's going to be looking at it. It's going to say something different, telling somebody to go to paragraph 2.3.8.4, and that's not there. And then we're going to be wondering what document are we looking at? Which one's the right one? I get the desire to do it, but I think we've got to keep very strict control of how it's updated and knowing what version is the correct version.
Talking about for the table more so than
the whole document. Okay. I mean, because we're saying, I have a concern of saying that we're not going to keep track of all these text changes that are that we all agree are errors. But if somebody's, if I call one of the other board members and I say, I need you to take a look at this paragraph of the document, and it's been changed from what they're looking at and what I'm looking at, it's going to be a whole nother ball of questions that everybody's going to ask.
Well, I mean, there would never be an occurrence of which that some of those grammatical changes, it would be, if there would be changes to something like that, it would be to further the current alignment of the formatting.
But I'm just saying from the world I live in, if I'm looking at a document and it doesn't say what everybody else thinks it says, it brings into question both documents.
I wonder if we could handle this. I agree with you on that because that's going to catch us because, even though it'd be nice for this to be like a living document, it kind of shouldn't be.
It's a serious controlled document.
But I think we can handle it like, well, no, because maybe we need to be in rotation, a regular rotation of updating grammatical formatting, and we just do it by consent. Okay. That may cover you all, cover us from the hyper legal standpoint of if we let you all make changes, whether it's a dot or not, then you're held responsible for it. And we weren't carrying out our oversight to the letter. So, but if you bring us, if however many happen, say in a month, and you can, under other business, you can say, we need you to make a motion to approve these changes or typographical changes, and we can handle that very quickly without going through all of this whole procedure. So we can do that by consent. And you can just let us know when you update us, send our packets, that we will have a consent agenda. And that's perfectly legal and normal.
And I do think we would need another, minor text amendment changes in here so that when it comes up later on, wow, this used to be paragraph 2, now it's paragraph 3. How did that happen?
And we can refer back to that.
I think the way to describe that is I think your table's doesn't have enough columns in it. And so, because I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the cell tower, and I'm thinking, well, what changed? And if there was a way to have a before and after?
And let me just clarify, maybe this is part of some of the confusion. Let me just clarify some of the process in that respect, right? So for each of these text amendments, so we have a copy of the ordinance as it was rewritten in 2021, right? We have the specific text amendment that y'all typically see, just like this, with the red lines and everything like that go before y'all. It gets approved. That's what this is documenting, and this is really just more of like a case reference than it is anything else. We have all that documentation on file as planning staff. And so we then, after we make those actual changes to the ordinance, it's now one clean ordinance, no red lines or anything like that. We then, after case 2023-16, we then have another UDO that we have on file. And so it will continue like that for each of those text amendments that we have. We're gonna have files of the ordinance then, we're gonna have files of the ordinance after an amendment. And that would still be the case for any formatting changes as well. That's just generally part of staff's job, is to keep all of those records for us, for the public, because like I said, you run into stuff, particularly like non-conformance issues, where you have a case that, they were in 2023 before those changes. We then, as staff, have to apply those standards at that time for that situation, not what we have now in some instances. So that's why it's really important for us anyway to keep those records of all of the UDOs before and since, if that makes sense. So that practice and that policy is already something that's very well established. Any good planning department is going to be doing that kind of record keeping.
Well, I guess what I was thinking is along the lines of, if I'm looking at, I'm trying to figure out a way that we as a planning board can do the research without having to go back and find which UDO, where that change was in past UDOs and stuff like that. That can get can be difficult for us because we don't live and breathe this document like you folks do.
Essentially, that's kind of why y'all have staff. Like at any point, if you're like, we would like to look at
we have to talk to you? No, I'm just kidding.
This is really just kind of like I said, each of these are individual cases. We have files of each of those individual cases, right? So this is really just a quick reference and a one-sheeter kind of thing in the ordinance, more quickly available to the general public than it would be otherwise, right? If a board member, commissioner, member of the public were to ask, hey, that case 2023-16, can you pull we would end up providing that information because we have that information. If they wanted to look at the UDO before and after, we're already keeping that to begin with. This is just a quick reference for the public as they're looking through the UDO, the current UDO, and be like, oh, maybe I'm working on cell towers, or someone's looking at cell tower references and they have an old one. Well, I see that it got amended here. Can you tell me about that language kind of thing?
Well, and I think you're also trying to get people to not look at, not to download it and keep it and then refer to it. You're trying to get them to also use the live one so that they're using the most recent.
Yeah, and that's usually, the most recent is usually the one that we're going to keep available very quickly and easily on the website so people can go and look at the ordinance. This just gives them much clearer reference, I think, to, oh, it got amended for this reason back in that year. Maybe that's relevant to the kind of questions that I'm looking at the UDO for.
like a code or something like that that says, this is version 21, or 2026.3.4.a, b.
Yeah, exactly.
That says, okay, so the most recent version of the UDO is this code that tells us, how I know
That's exactly
that I
right.
got the most recent.
Yep.
But, I mean, I'll give you an example. My workflow in preparing for these meetings is I have a copy of it downloaded on my iPad. I don't go check what the latest version is on.
Well, I see, and I did the same thing, and I was looking, I was going, wait a minute. And then I thought, wait, the one I had was 2024, and I thought, I bet I don't have the most recent version.
That'll be something, if you are doing that, generally, I will recommend, you're here, you get to see all the text amendments that come through. Anytime there's a text amendment, I highly recommend, especially if, the section you're looking at is relevant, to maybe re-downloading that from the website.
I think I think there's some wisdom in that. Yeah, for us to be proactive in that respect.
Yeah.
So that we have the most recent information.
So much that I would love to make this like easy peasy and y'all just make the changes, I can just envision where if we change a number or a dot and we haven't done it through the procedures, somebody out there on the World Wide Web is going to accuse us of doing something illegal. And they're going to say that, because we're not doing anything like that, and we're still being accused of being criminals up here. So I would rather stick to just, I don't, if we can make the procedure how we make those changes easier, then I would look for that. Instead of, because I think that puts you all at risk, because I would hate for employees and good civil servants that you are to be caught on something that is small but can be construed by the public as not going through proper channels. And you know how things are right now. So I don't want to put y'all in that position. I mean, it is our responsibility to make sure that this stuff, that we're following proper procedure, and it's all public, all that other good stuff. So
Can I make a recommendation? Instead
Yes.
of going every month, if they let them go ahead and make the period change and the page number references. And then once a quarter, bring it to us and say, here's all the changes we made. And we all get to look at it and go,
In that secondary list that we're
Yep.
talking about, that's just minor text adjustments, and then we can go look at them and say, yeah, and then we
yeah,
got it.
and then we can say, oh, that's cool, and then we're good, and.
we'll just, we'll do a quick motion, and that way it's all,
But at the same time, you see you see an error, in the spelling, or, you make the change. And then we just review the changes like once a quarter or something like that.
Definitely. If y'all are okay with the current language, I can just add in a secondary kind of clause that kind of incorporates what you're talking about there.
so that.
The table's cool.
Yeah, the table's good. So what that means is let's table this until next month, and then make those changes, and then we'll come back and we'll pass it then.
Well, thank y'all so much for your feedback. This is exactly why we do this.
So going back to the columns. Yeah, so could you put a column in whether it was an add or a revision? So in other words, is the language for the new wireless telecommunication tower requirements, was that an update? Was it an add? Was it a correction, or was it,
Because the next version's going to lose the red. The next version will not have the red. It will have been just made to regular black text and just updating it.
But that way, I wouldn't
You
be
have a
looking
record
at
of
this
that.
table, we know, okay, it was an add, okay,
I agree with what
And I
you're
think
saying.
that's just enough information to kind of give us, okay,
You're going to keep the originating documents for any of these text amendments or cases or anything, right? You will have the originating document. So any changes that occur, like May, June, July, blah, blah, blah.
We're going to have the before and after.
You'll have the before and after. You'll have the before is the originating document. And you'll keep that, and then any changes go from there.
Correct. Yeah, we'll have
Use
the,
Microsoft Word, right?
yeah, generally, Microsoft Word and
All the changes that you make.
PDFs and everything like that.
Just to make this as clean as possible, can I have a motion to table this and with further?
I move that we table this till next.
No, wait a minute. I'm not done with this yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. 2026-05 says, and I don't disagree with the general thrust of it. It's just, there's just something out there. I'm not a very trusting person by nature. It says to allow staff to make non-substantive editorial changes to the UDO. Will we have any knowledge? These text amendments these text amendment changes are going to appear periodically in the future. Are we going to have any way of knowing who made that change? The individual, down to the granular issues of the name of the person that made the changes, and who they were, and why did they make that change?
I don't think that,
Review.
yeah, and I don't think that's I don't know whether that information is,
Well,
I don't want to say relevant, but,
Let me
yeah.
clarify why I was going in that direction. Are we going to know, we trust you and Nick implicitly. There may be other people around the county that we don't trust so much. Are we going to know that the person making the changes was you or Nick or somebody that was authorized to do so?
Well, at the very least, what this is giving legal authorization to do is it technically puts it in the hands of the community development director, and then whoever the community, a lot of our language and definitions of what that position is also kind of, and who he appoints to do whatever task. So it would be only county employees and staff of community development director at the director's discretion who could make these legal changes in the first place. As far as keeping up specifically with who makes changes, I don't know that we keep up.
Can we have some guidelines as to these changes being made only by certain people, like you and Nick and?
Well, you can't do it by name, you have to do it by person.
by title.
By position or something.
I'm fine
So
with
you're not
leaving a
comfortable
community
that-
development director.
Say what?
I'm fine leave, it says community development director,
I thought that was.
yeah.
And we define director as like director and his
Yeah, I think that's
appointees.
gonna take care of that.
Pretty much. Anytime you see that in the ordinance with community development director, it's the director and whoever he appoints to be able to do this particular task, right?
that's
So
clear.
that would include staff
The
or,
development director would have ultimate responsibility for
Correct.
any change, any non-substantial, or any changes made that shouldn't have been made.
correct.
Okay.
That county, the county director is ultimately responsible.
Right, okay.
Have substantial staff, instead of listing specific staff positions or something like that. It wasn't too long ago
Yeah,
where
it
we
goes
had
back to
very
the-
substantial staff changes where we had to go to just a consultant for a few weeks.
Right.
Like, we wouldn't have to make any amendments to the UDO just to be able to get amendments passed through.
Okay.
There's also, when there are staff vacancies, there is also, there would be an interim named anyway, I would assume.
Right, there's usually always, especially with the
Yeah.
director position, there's always
Okay.
going to be at least some sort of
Yeah,
continuity there.
and, or the interim, and we just need to make sure that the county manager understands that if there's a vacancy in that position, that for our purposes, whoever, whether it's consultant or what, needs to be named as interim community development director, because that will cover this.
Always
Yeah.
maintain that
Yeah,
continuity.
yeah, okay.
So it sounds like with this, we're just going to be adding in that review step.
Mm-hmm.
We'll add in some language there.
That would be-
And then for the table, we'll just be adding in that one extra column for additions or amendments. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Sounds good. Thank y'all so much.
Can I make a motion?
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm good with
Okay,
that, with
okay.
whatever you were.
I move that we delay this for your adjustments to the language until next meeting.
Sounds good.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Those opposed, likewise. Okay,
Thank you.
it's all clear.
Next text amendment is,
It's going to be easy, didn't it?
perfect. No, I completely welcome, I mean, this is exactly why we bring it before y'all. I mean, y'all get into the weeds about it.
Well, it's good.
And I think these text amendments in particular, I think are really kind of the most important work that we do. I mean, these are the main changes of all of the regulations that are going to take place that everything else filters down through. So these are the things that I think we should take the most scrutinous eye upon, and I certainly welcome all of your viewpoints and discussions on stuff like this. So thank y'all so much.
It's important for us to help protect you and. it's
Absolutely,
important for you to Protect, I know, I mean, so we're a team in this little endeavor. Yeah.
And we have made controversial text amendment, so
I could not
changes.
imagine that happening.
Yeah, and it's still bubbling.
Our next case is 2026-06. This is another text amendment. This is something to really, I don't view this as adding anything to the document per se. I really view this as just making it very explicit and clear that this is the case. So essentially, what this is attempting to do is just add in some language here, making it very specific that there is only one principal building and its customary accessory buildings placed on the zoning lot of record in residential areas. Basically, the one house per lot rule is kind of the heuristic here for us. So this is something that staff already does. There's a lot of logic in the ordinance already, I think, established. I mean, kind of what everyone assumes to be like single-family homes, kind of the underlying logic there, I think, being that it is intended to have one home per lot. We also have a lot of language in there for, especially when we deal with like accessory dwellings and things like that. We're making this demarcation of a primary home and an accessory one, and accessory buildings and things like that, kind of making the assumption that there's going to be one primary home or structure on a lot, and then you have the accessory things. So I think that logic is already kind of there in the ordinance, and that has certainly always been staff policy, that we're going to tell individuals as they come in and have questions. A lot of that is the underlying reason for the zoning case earlier, where they had two homes in a lot and they wanted to further get into compliance by having one home per lot. So this is just something that I felt was important to make very explicit and clear, just in case anybody were to point to, specifically be like, hey, show me exactly where that is in the ordinance, kind of situation. That's basically all I have on this one, so I'd be welcome any questions that you may have on it.
How does condos fit into this, where you buy the actual condo, but they're all, in a,
So it does depend a little bit. So the only instance in these three zoning districts where that would really apply is we have uses for duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. Duplexes are going to be allowed in all of those three zoning districts that we'll be doing this for, and then triplexes, quadruplexes, and townhomes are only allowed in that RM. So you can, maybe at the easiest level, you can have a duplex and do it two different ways. You could have it, you just have one structure, one owner, and it's still just all one lot, and you just have two individual units that you either live in or rent out. You could also actually put lots around those, right? Intentionally put individual lots so you could have two different owners for each of the actual units. So one structure, two lots kind of situation. And that just kind of scales out a little bit with triplexes, quads, and probably the most relevant being townhomes. So those would just end up having individual lots, and so that logic would still just kind of maintain. You would still have one dwelling or one primary use per the individual lot, if that makes sense.
yeah, I guess I'm struggling just a bit, because, you could have 4 condos right next, in the same structure. And they would have, and sometimes, you know, and they're not rentals, they're owners.
So if that was the case in which someone is attempting to build that, they would create, like, say it's four units in one structure, they would create 4 individual lots for that, right? And so that would.
Find those individual as a lot. Okay.
Well, lots would be created around it, and then it would still just kind of end up maintaining this general principle of, one primary use, one primary thing per those individual lots. But you could also do it the other way, too. If you had those 4 units in one structure, you could just do one lot around it. It's still one structure. So either way you could imagine that would still kind of fall within this, I would think.
But there's ownership, there's a deed, there's, and all that stuff associated with purchasing a condo or a townhome or something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
How do you
And
deal with-
it's our desire in the development plan to move to more mixed and more denser type of housing arrangements, and so that's
Yes.
why I'm asking.
And I don't think this would really affect that too much. I think kind of either way you cut it,
Too much?
I don't think this really affects that. Sorry.
Okay.
So kind of was what I was saying, kind of either way you decide to cut it, this underlying principle still gets maintained. If you want to do it one property, it's still one structure. Now, where it may runs into is, if you end up having, I think the intention was always, say you had multiple, say you ended up having multiple duplexes.
Yeah.
You would have to carve those out into lots. But that's kind of how we've always interpreted it anyway. So you didn't want to condo out the duplexes, one structure per thing. You would have to do individual lots for those.
So how do you
That's
deal
kinda
with the
how we-
setbacks?
So especially with townhomes, we have other provisions within the ordinance that kind of changes it. So you can do those smaller lots that are like condo, townhome kind of lots. And then with duplexes and things like that, it's kind of.
Without moving it, everything else we would have to move to RM,
Correct.
correct? Okay.
And that's the case use-wise, how it's structured anyway.
Okay. Thank you. Because that was the one, how's this going to play?
No, I mean, this is exactly, again, one of the reasons why I want to run it by as many people as I can to get eyes on it is to think of things that I didn't think of, right?
So the principal building, there's no definition really what the principal building is. Do you?
There is a definition. I actually don't have it off the
Okay.
top of my head, but
Well, could you imagine a scenario where the principal building, there'd be a conflict between what is interpreted as the principal building and, I mean, is it just clear what it is? Like, if you have 2 buildings on the same lot, and one of them is a home, and then there's, say, a barn garage that has a unit over top of it, which one of those is the principal building?
so this is, I'll show you how we interpret this now. And again, I don't think this changes this at all. I think it just kind of further makes it explicit. In that instance, we're just going to look at what is the living floor area of the structures for the living area, and then whichever one is bigger. So whichever has the larger living space square footage, the larger one is what we consider the primary. And then we do have accessory dwelling units that we allow. So then for the one that's smaller, that's when we go to our standards and our definitions for accessory dwelling units.
So, I mean, and I'm just being really nitpicky, thinking of everything. Is there ever a case where both of the square footage of the dwellings is the same?
If it is that instance, so with accessory dwelling units, our standards for size on accessory dwelling units is you can do up to 650 square feet for an accessory dwelling unit, or you can do 50% of the square footage of the living space of the
Primary.
primary home.
Okay.
So for instance, if you had a 2,000 square foot home, you can go up to 1,000. So it's whichever one is greater. Basically, you can go up to that 50%, but no matter what, you get that 650.
So within the
So
definitions.
if you've
yeah.
got two that are perfectly the same,
Yeah.
that is an instance that we would require subdivision.
Yeah, so, your fail-safe is built in by requiring that it be half the square footage. So there will always be a building that will be larger. Okay.
Yeah,
that was-
either you're meeting those standards for that accessory, because hopefully they're getting permits before, right? Either you're meeting that standards, or we're saying, no, that's too big. This is an instance where you're
We've
going to
gotta
need
do something
another.
else.
You'll have to do a lot for it.
Okay.
Travel trailer was smaller than my house.
Yeah, that is. We know that. Okay, we're being facetious now. Okay, are there any more questions?
Nope.
Any more questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
I motion to approval of this text amendment based on the consistency determination statements that are included in the agenda packet and may be amended during the text amendment process.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, likewise. So that ends our text, no, we've got to do the zoning text amendments for, oh, no, that's all we've got to do. Okay, so we are on to other business. Adam, would you be willing to, under other business, introduce, well, first of all, I need to remind the board that I will be out of the country next month for this meeting, so Corey will be, and you will be out as well. So,
You guys.
yeah, we'll definitely need the new folks. And I will make sure that Corey has the script here, and he will serve as chair next time. Okay. Adam, if you will introduce or tell us about our new members that will be participating as of next month.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I'm sure you were able to see some fresh faces in the crowd, we are hopefully fully staffed on our board now. They just got approved by Board of Commissioners. They still have to swear their oaths. That's why they're not up here with y'all tonight. But we have 2 actual board members joining and then 2 alternates as well. So our board members is going to be Sean White and Spencer Odell. And then we've also got Becky Shamali and Ken Layfield joining us as alternates.
You lift the names if they would stand as
Yes.
their names are called, so we know that, can we put the face with the names?
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Completely welcome you. If y'all want to come up and just speak really quickly, just introduce yourselves to the board. We'll start with
Thank you.
We'll start with Sean, if you'd like.
Hey, how you doing, guys? My name's Sean White. I spent the last, 7 years, 5 years real estate. Since 2023, I've been in mortgages. So excited. Just moved into Rockingham in 24. So excited and want to do more for the community and really get involved.
Sounds like you
Welcome.
have some good real estate experience.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's good. That'll be helpful.
No, I don't think so, no. Welcome, thank you so much.
We're delighted.
Good afternoon. My name is Spencer Odell. I'm a registered professional engineer with the state of North Carolina. Currently serve as the chairperson for the Human and Health Services Board for Rockingham County, and I'm currently the county maintenance engineer with the North Carolina Department of Transportation.
And where do you live?
Oh, I'm sorry. Right now, I'm actually in the process. I just bought a house in Reidsville, 1307 Merlin Circle. Grew up lifelong Rockingham County citizen. Grew up 239 Landers Drive, Stoneville, and went to Moorhead High School. So,
With all of that other stuff, you had time to do the planning board too. Yeah, gee, that's great. Okay. Awesome.
thank you.
So you have a real job.
I do. That's a very busy job right now.
I bet it is.
Thank you, and welcome.
Welcome.
Good
Good evening. My name's Ken Layfield. I've lived in Rockingham County since 2019. We live Blues Landing, Blues Lake, and I was a little bit of background. We lived in Kernersville for about 25 years. Before we moved up there, I retired. I spent a lot of my career with the Volvo Mac Group in various management positions. A little civic history. I was a president of HOA out there at Blues Landing. I was actually in the town of Kernersville Board of Adjustments for 11 years. I was chairman for 4 years, so I can appreciate a lot of your, the dynamics that go on sometimes and a lot of responsibilities. Yeah, I just wanted to get back involved. I enjoy this type of, it can be work, but I'm interested in government and how things run and operate. And actually, right now, I'm going through, Spencer and I are going through the Rockingham County Citizens Academy, which is very interesting, very informative, and I have complimented.
That's how we made it up here.
Yeah.
I've actually complimented county manager and Derek Southern, assistant manager, how well informative it is, and I highly encourage a lot of our citizens to participate in that. So again, looking forward, I'm an alternate, but I look forward to kind of stepping in and helping out whenever you need it.
Thank you so much, and
you.
welcome.
Adam, can I ask a question?
Sir.
Will the members, the new members, and the alternates get copies of the packet
Yeah, they will.
that comes out? And will you add their names to your mailing list?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other business? None. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those likewise.
Aye.